Dr. Rona, it seems that since we've all been following low-fat diets, we have done nothing but put weight on, get fatter and fatter and fatter. Why?
Well, when you consume a diet that's low in fats, you're also going to consume diets that are deficient in essential fatty acids. And the most important of these is the omega-3 fatty acids, which come from fish oils and which come from certain plants. One of the reasons why that happens is because if you're lacking in omega-3s, then you're not going to be able to manufacture certain hormones called prostaglandins in your body. And as a result of that, this will slow your metabolism. You need these prostaglandins to boost metabolism and to help you lose weight. So if you're going to starve yourself of these essential fats, you're going to get fatter and fatter and fatter as a result of hormonal imbalances.
That's incredible, because I know firsthand when I don't take fish oil, I put weight on. When I take it, I lose weight. It's incredible. It's like a yo-yo. It really does work.
And the other thing is that people are consuming too much of the omega-6s, which are found in pretty much everything. So when you go to
everything like what?
Well, it's found in a lot of fast foods. It's found in many different plants.
Even olive oil?
It's olive oil is omega-9 primarily, but we're getting adequate amounts of that, and we're getting very little of the omega-3. So as a result, our hormone productions of the prostaglandin hormone family are inhibited, and because of that, we become imbalanced between the omega-6 and the omega-9. And compounding this is the fact that people are buying omega-6 in the health food store when they don't really need it. What they need to do, if they're not going to eat fish, they're going to have to consume things like fish oil, because that's the richest source of omega-3s.
What if we eat a bunch of salmon?
Well, the big problem with eating a bunch of salmon is mercury, PCBs, arsenic, quite a few other chemicals. Even Health Canada now is saying that we shouldn't be consuming as much fish as we do, and we should restrict our fish intake to maybe twice or 4 times a month at the most.
Soon we won't be able to eat anything. We'll be really thin.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, how do you know that your source of fish oil is a reliable source?
That's a very good question. If you're going to buy a fish oil supplement, what you should do is you should buy from a company that provides you with a toxicological report if you want it, and provides you with an analysis of what's in their product. There are some good companies that do what's called high pressure liquid chromatography, where they actually put their fish oil into this machine that will give you a printout of exactly what the biochemical content of the product is. And there are companies that don't do that. I'm not going to name any companies that do, but when I was looking at certain companies, I was always interested to see if they would have this kind of a report, and if they were backed by some kind of science on this. The ones that do, they try to keep the mercury, arsenic, PCBs, dioxins, and all the other chemicals out of the fish oil, and that's the kind of company you want to basically buy.
That makes sense. What are some other symptoms of omega-3 deficiency?
Well, the most interesting one is something to do with the nervous system. So in people that are omega-3 deficient, they will have problems with thinking, with moods, with depression. In children, it's interesting to see that they have problems with school performance and attention deficit disorder, learning disabilities. I mean, 70% of your brain is made up of fat, and if you don't have an adequate amount of these, it stands to reason that your brain's not going to work. Aside from the central nervous system symptoms, the depression, the learning disabilities, there's also cardiovascular problems. Very interesting that even cardiologists nowadays are prescribing fish oils. And the reason why they do is because fish oils help, omega-3 does help circulation. It helps your blood to flow a lot better. It prevents
the blood. Does it thin the blood?
It doesn't really thin the blood, but it prevents blockages or excessive clotting. And in a way, I mean, you could sort of look at it as a blood thinner,
so
but as a natural one.
Can you take this instead of aspirin?
Yeah, absolutely, you can. Yes, I do. I take many patients off of their aspirin because it doesn't really work as well, I think, as a fish oil. And there are good studies now that prove that fish oil is superior to aspirin in terms of preventing heart attacks and strokes.
Now, is fish oil as an omega-3 source superior to a plant-based source like flaxseed oil or hemp oil?
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's just a higher concentration of the omega-3s. And in the hemp and in the flax, there is some omega-6 as well. And it's not, omega-6 in some ways inhibits the action of omega-3. So we have enough omega-6. We need omega-3. So that's why fish oil is superior and is the product of choice.
Why do some companies put out omega-3, 6, 9 in one?
They shouldn't. It just indicates that the problem there is a perception by the public that you need to get all three of them, and that you're not going to be able to get all of these things from food, and you can. But the omega-3 is the hardest to get from food, and that's the one we should be supplementing because the omega-6 is going to inhibit, the omega-3, actions.
Now, what about cod liver oil? Do you remember lining up in school, getting a little dose of cod liver oil every day?
Cod liver oil is terrific. There's only one problem with cod liver oil.
What's that?
It contains too much vitamin A, and it contains some amounts of vitamin D, but inadequate amounts of vitamin D. And interestingly enough, there have been some recent studies that show that if you take too much vitamin A, you inhibit the action of vitamin D. So basically, it's better to take a fish oil supplement with just the omega-3s and supplement the vitamin D in another way.
What about fats like margarine, butter?
Plastic butter.
Butter.
Margarine is plastic butter. It's
Somebody said you should heat it up on the stove and see the difference.
actually, if you take margarine and you take a plastic and put both under the microscope, they're indistinguishable.
Really?
Yeah, they're both the same thing.
And they're really pushing margarine.
Margarine, I think, is toxic in large degree. There are a lot of studies that show that it basically poisons the system, and butter is superior to margarine.
And butter is an omega what?
Butter doesn't really have any omegas in it. It's just a saturated fat. But it doesn't have as bad an influence on health as people think, and it's far safer to use than any margarine product.
Why did we become deficient in these omega-3s? Why, over the last few years? I mean, our grandparents didn't have this problem, did they?
Our grandparents probably didn't have this problem because they ate whole foods, but we're eating a lot of foods that are fried or cooked excessively. We're obsessed with keeping our weight under control. So we're just not getting it from our diets. That's the basic problem. You don't see too many people these days who live in Toronto who are out there eating hemp and flaxseed or consuming fish on a regular basis without any mercury in it. So as a result of that, we become deficient.
Do you often see these heavy metals in the blood of people?
Quite often, yes.
From eating fish?
From eating fish. I do a mercury blood test on every new patient that comes in, and I would say more than half of them have high mercury levels.
What fish would have the highest concentration, do you
The
think?
larger the fish, the more mercury.
So tuna would be?
Tuna is right off the scale. Tuna is the highest source of mercury, followed by things like sea bass and swordfish and sushi. There's a lot of people that think that sushi is so wonderful to eat all these
The raw tuna?
raw tuna and raw fish, and they're the ones that with the highest mercury levels.
That's scary.
I know
And
it
we all
is.
grew up on tuna sandwiches.
Well, I didn't.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
lucky.
Well, there was no.
Oh, because you don't like fish.
Well, in Hungary, I don't think there were too many tuna fish.
Oh, right.
It's an inland country.
Right. What about the transportation of these oils? Is it better to have a darkened bottle? Is it better plastic glass? I mean, it's
point.
oil.
I mean, oil is going to react to temperature changes and to light. So you want to have a darkened bottle, and you want to keep any of the chemicals out of the plastic. You really don't want to have a plastic bottle. You want to have a glass bottle would be ideal.
Canola oil, that's being pushed.
Canola oil is being pushed, and in some countries in Europe it's banned, and there are reasons for that. Canola oil does produce some damage and can increase things like atherosclerosis, damage to blood vessels, and so I never recommend it.
Now, is it true that omega-3 reduces inflammation in the body and omega-6 exacerbates it?
Omega-6 could be pro-inflammatory if it's higher than the omega-3s. So omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory oil.
What about conditions like arthritis or multiple sclerosis? What's your opinion?
Well,
What connection is there? Is there a connection?
Yes, there is. And many people that have arthritis, if they take omega-3s for a long enough period of time, usually 2 to 3 months, they notice some improvement in their joints. Certainly multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease, and there's a lot of inflammation involved. If you get omega-3s, then the inflammation is reduced. There's no question about that.
So is that true for anything like eczema, psoriasis, all those conditions?
Yeah.
Because it's inflammation?
Right. If your skin is dry, there's really a good test for determining whether you need omega-3s or not. Take a look at your skin. If your skin is very dry, you're omega-3 deficient. If your skin is very oily, you've got too much.
What about those little pimply things on the backs of arms that some kids have?
Yeah, that's also associated with it. That's hyperkeratosis follicularis, and that's a condition associated with... Never mind.
With this?
With these essential oils, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we should all be taking a fish oil supplement.
I think it's the best policy to do
If you were to suggest 5 top supplements, you know, if you don't want to take 30 things a day, what would they be?
Well, the top one, I think, would be fish oil, followed by vitamin D.
Especially in Canada, probably.
Especially in Canada, yes. Especially in northern latitude countries. So those two are very important, but also B12 would be very important. Vitamin C. I think those would be the most important ones. And maybe some B complex would be important, and a multiple vitamin would be important. A green supplement, if you are...
We're up to 8 now.
We're up to 8 now? Well, I've got a list of about 40 of them, but...
And the greens, why should we take those?
Well, because most people under a lot of stress and who have long hours, they may not be getting adequate amounts of the nutrients that are found in greens, and their systems may be much more acid. One of the nice things about taking greens is that it makes your system more alkaline. And the reason why I think that's important is because disease does not exist in an alkaline medium. It usually exists in an acid medium. So the more acid your body is, the more likely it is you'll get cancer, heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, and many other diseases. If you make your body more alkaline, you avoid that.
Yeah, we're going to cover more of that when we talk about colon health.
Sure.
Of the greens, they're all important, or which ones are the most important?
Well, there's many of them. The ones that most people know about, spirulina, chlorella, barley green.
Other than alkalizing the body, is it because of the dense nutrient
Yes,
content?
there's a lot of antioxidants in greens. There are phytochemicals which will bind on to toxic heavy metals. So for example, chlorella has a lot of different phytochemicals that will actually bind mercury and
it takes it out of the body?
Yeah, it takes it out of the body. It's sort of a chelation therapy. A lot of people go for what's called chelation therapy, where they do that intravenously to bind poisons and get them out of the system. You can do pretty much the same kind of thing with taking a green supplement every day.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Does it give you energy?
A lot of people take greens for energy, for stamina, for libido, for better...
Give it to me, libido. Does it also...
And it gives you antioxidant protection against many diseases, makes your system more alkaline, and it's probably a good way for everyone to take something to detoxify themselves every day.
So is there a detox reaction for some people with these greens if they're quite toxic?
There can be. There are some people that have multiple chemicals, hypersensitivity. Some people with numerous allergies, they may have a problem with it. So they'd have to start off with very low doses and gradually work their way up. But the average person can take that and just notice a much better, energy profile.
But you don't recommend that people eat at McDonald's every day and take their greens?
You could do that too, but it's not advisable.
Better to have a healthy diet and add the greens.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.